Welcome back to Mind Pump TV. I'm your host, Adam Schafer, and this is the second video to a 5-part series that we did with Jonh from the Onnit Academy. This is a great one. We're gonna get into some of the biggest mistakes that people make with the steel mace and the clubs, and then also how to progress these movements with other exercises. So make sure you guys pay attention to all the coaching cues. This is a great video series if you're just getting started with either the mace or with the clubs. Make sure you guys tune into this. If you like this video, make sure you share with your friends, subscribe to the channel. We're dropping knowledge every single week.
Okay, Jonh, well, I got you here and we're talking about clubs. I wanted to make sure we go over a couple of the common mistakes or some things people may be doing that maybe we should identify and highlight.
Yeah, I think the first biggest mistake, especially when people are starting, and I think this is the big thing, is if you don't have a good start to a journey, you don't want to finish the journey, right? And the clubs, there's a deep rabbit hole that we can go down with club training. And if we don't build some momentum early in the process, it's just going to be another thing that sits in the corner of your gym. And you could talk about how you bought them and never use them, right?
Right.
And so the first one is when you're selecting a club, underestimating how unwieldy a tool it is. So we have 3 weights here that we brought out for our demo video earlier, and you got a 5, a 15, and a 10. And what I think the biggest mistake is everybody wants to go with something they attach to a dumbbell weight, right?
Yeah, right. They totally underestimate how it's distributed, how the weight's distributed and what that's gonna do and all the leverage involved. So yeah, explain that.
Yeah, so, and we can just have you pick the clubs and just demonstrate in a stable position. Well, we'll call this a ready position. So 90 degrees at the elbow. It's like a big thumb, right? It's like thumbs up, 7 up.
Right.
And so shoulders depressed down and back, proud chest. And a lot of times we're going to keep a neutral pelvis, so soften the knees. With the clubs, having a lot of sensitivity to your positioning is a big thing. So just holding the 5-pound club, I think everybody is going to be pretty successful at that.
Yeah, you can manage this pretty easily.
Yeah, but at the
For the most part.
Yeah, for the most part.
Some people might not.
Yeah, exactly. And so now we can work on developing skill with movement. So from here, doing a pullover, for example, and this is a basic movement, right? A pullover movement is going to really be great for any throwing athletes, any overhead strength power athletes. It's going to be great for all those things. So you get early power generation out of that back position. So we'll just use that as our litmus test as we go through the 2 more clubs, all right?
Okay.
So Justin, let's go put that down and let's go for the 25. I'm sorry, the 15.
Okay.
So just to see how progressively more challenging that is. Now, obviously, he's not just going to lever it up. He's actually used some body English. That's the smart way to use these things. Otherwise, you're going to end up with some elbow tendonitis, which, hey, unfortunately, I had experience when I started with clubs in 2002. So I got one that was too heavy, and that's the downside of it.
That's why I learned my lesson with that too, and that's why I always tend to pick them up with a hip hinge now. So.
Yeah, man. I mean, this is not like every other tool. You're not just grinding your way through it. Hey, look at this. Even just holding this, there's more play on this club. I don't know if the camera can see it, but there's just this light oscillation, and you're constantly adapting to it. The lever's longer, the weight's heavier, so this is not just 3 times the perceived load. It's probably like 4 or 5 times the perceived load is that 5 pounds.
It's significant.
And so we go through that pullover again. Good. So for us, a lot of times with the heavier clubs, we're going to keep that circle nice and tight. So think about running your fingers through your hair, just right over your ear. So keep the circle relatively small, just right over the shoulder. There you go. So we tighten the circle a little bit, right? So we change the arc. So especially as we get heavier, we want the circle to stay tighter and tighter. So we reduce the amount of perceived load on that shoulder girdle. All right, so now we've got the 15. Uh-oh. Now this is where it gets interesting. So Justin actually swings clubs, but the steel clubs that we brought in are going to be generally heavier given the size of, relative to any wood. And look at this. The clubs
are already moving on me.
Yeah, and especially if you change where your eyes are, right? So there's a lot more engagement that has to occur. All right, so now as we go through this, let's go ahead and see how you feel with that pullover. And there's more body English, and there's a lot more control and stability that's demanded on the body. Boom. Yeah, you're pretty beastly with this thing. I think a lot of people would have a lot harder time with it. Obviously, if it's your first time, it's not Justin's first time at the rodeo. Hey, and he's still got plenty of challenge there. Yeah, exactly. Let's go ahead and put that down. So that's the big thing, is just starting too heavy. Now, the big thing, the second thing is, imagine that rolls us right into the next big mistake people make is, hey, I saw this thing on YouTube.
Oh yeah.
Right? And it looked easy.
Right.
So if you don't mind, maybe I'll demonstrate
Absolutely.
this. Right?
I want to see this. Yeah.
So I see this guy on YouTube, and we look at that same 25-pound club, and maybe because I've spent decades doing this, I can make this 25-pound club look light, right? I can lever it. I can change my orientation. We can work rotational patterns, lateral stability. We can do a lot of different stuff, but ideally when I do it, just like anything else that you've done for a decade, the perception of it being easy doesn't make it easy.
Absolutely not. Me watching you do that, I'm just like in awe because I already know the mechanics involved, the body control, the amount of tension that you have to produce throughout your body while being loose and fluid. So there's just a lot of skill involved with that, which I think people underestimate.
Yeah, man, I think it's easy to underestimate, especially the tool. When you swing this tool, the lever tool, it is a finesse tool as much as it is a strength tool. And so it's about using the appropriate amount of strength at the right time, right? So like you said, being loose and being stable and strong at the same time, it's a big dynamic range. Right?
So you're saying don't go on your Instagram page and do all the crazy stuff you do.
Well, I had to put that out there right now because I've been putting out some crazy Insta content.
I've been watching.
And I don't want people, our audience, to go out there and try to recreate that unless you do it with the 5-pounder.
Good.
All right. The last one is, I think you and I talked about this too. People focus on they think it's a grip and upper body tool specifically. And so what we can look at is, hey, even just using a stable platform, let's go ahead and have you have the 25-pound club. And instead of holding it with one hand, let's hold it 2 hands, kind of like you would a baseball bat. Okay? And so a lot of times what I'll have is your dominant hand. If your right hand is your dominant hand, pull that right elbow back. And this is a 2-handed ready position. Now, even with the 2 hands on there, we're going to say, okay, well, geez, this is still creating a stability demand. Actually, I'm going to have your forearm just off your body, and same thing on the lateral side, so that there's active tension versus.
Got it.
As soon as
I'm not resting it into my body.
As soon as you touch your body,
Jonh.
there's
Go ahead and
muscles
say
that
it.
disengage.
Yeah.
No, you're doing great. But now there's muscular tension that has to control the orientation of the club. And so we'll just do like a forward and reverse lunge. Keep your left foot planted. Do a relatively short front and a reverse lunge. Actually, just the lunge. Sorry.
Lunge.
Yep.
Sorry.
So go ahead and. Good. I'm gonna move that club just to make sure we manage the space, and then back. So, same foot. Boom. Nice. All right. So now we can go ahead and add a new element. So with the lower body, you're gonna hold that low lunge position, and then we'll add that press since you already were looking at that, right?
Jumping ahead.
Yeah. No, you're good. I actually wasn't gonna add that, but we're gonna add this in. So go ahead and do that nice low lunge. Keep the rear knee slightly floating, and then press off that platform. Good. Now, you might feel that there's a lot of engagement, not only in the upper body, but through the whole system here. Pull back and then re-engage into a tall neutral position. So that's going to be something that's kind of fun. If we're familiar with 2-handed swinging, then we can also, down the midline, swing and then step into that lunge in a ready position. Now, this is about a little more dynamic lower body work, right? So we're going to swing down the midline, swing out and step. Good, and you added the press, but you don't even have to add the press.
Okay.
You fancy, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I get this about you. Boom.
I am fancy.
Yeah, and so good. So now you're generating power and then finding stability, all with a nice rhythmic timing and sequencing component to it, right?
I like that.
So a lot of times people just overestimate the fact, or they underestimate the fact that we can integrate a lot of these swings and rotational patterns and then really place a new demand on the lower body to get in on the action, but it has to be at the right time, right? So there's a timing element, and it makes it fun.
Yeah, it's so versatile, and it's great that you can highlight leg movements with it as well, because I think that's less commonly known. And so just having a tool like this and being able to now take it, to incorporate legs, to incorporate core, shoulders. We obviously already know the benefits it has with the shoulders, but I will definitely be using that for some leg-based exercises.
I got some more stuff I'll send your way.
Oh, bring it on, buddy. Bring it on.
Man.